Chapter 12. Finished with collecting dirty glass and other dishes, Sam headed back to the kitchen. The whole back end of the Aztec Club was spotlessly clean, and the kitchen was a chef's dream. She had just found out that the club had been rebuilt only recently. Kira's brother had tried to kill her to get a hold of her money and had set the club on fire and then kidnapped her. Trouble seemed to follow the women who were fated to be mates of the men of the Freeze Pack. She'd heard Michelle's and Talia's stories as well, and even though it made her feel a little better to know she wasn't the only one to bring trouble to town, she still wasn't comfortable knowing she was putting others in danger. Roan gave her a smile and wink as he passed by, and a few moments later Chet, following after his brother, caught her eye and grinned at her. Sam loaded the dishwasher, washed her hands, and went back to cook the next order up. The moment the menu offered only the usual fare such as burgers and fries, but she had plans to offer much healthier and more appetizing food. She would have to run it by her mates and probably the alphas as well, but she had big plans for this place now that her men had relented and let her return. It had been nearly 4 weeks since Gerard had attacked her in the pack house. It had taken a lot of persuasion on her part to get back in this kitchen. Now that she was comfortable with the men in her life being werewolves, the rest of the pack had relaxed too, and she didn't jump or startle when a wolf came across her path any longer. She had actually gone to watch her mates and pack members shift on the night of a full moon, and even though she had been embarrassed at first, forgetting everyone would have to remove their clothes, the sight of a nude body now no longer made her cheeks turn pink. Ringing the bell to let the other waitstaff know the order was up, she looked for the next one, but the hooks were empty. Glancing at her watch, she realized it was now after 10 p.m. and no more food orders would be taken, so she set about cleaning up. It took Sam just under an hour to clean the kitchen until it was sparkling, and since she had been working from midday, her feet were aching. She grabbed a bottle of water and made her way toward the back door. She just needed a quiet moment to breathe in some fresh country air. Slipping through the rear door, she sat down on the step and sipped at her beverage. Hearing a shuffle of feet against the concrete in the alley, she looked intently into the darkness. Her eyesight was a lot better since she had been claimed by her mates, and even though she couldn't see who it was, she could make out the silhouette of a tall male walking toward her. Sam stood and reached out behind her, feeling for the door handle as she stepped back into the door. Just as her hand met the cool metal of the knob, the male leapt toward her and pulled her against him. Squeaking with fright, she looked up into the demonic, evil eyes of Gerard Long. She opened her mouth to scream. No more than a squeak emerged before it was muffled by his large hand covering her mouth and nose. Dropping the bottle, she twisted and pushed against him, using all the strength she could muster, but he was much larger and stronger than she was, so her efforts were futile. Spreading her legs to regain her balance, she lifted her knee, aiming for his crotch, but he moved quickly and she only connected with his thigh. "Nice try, you little bitch. You'll pay for that," he said coldly. Sam fought against him, but nothing she did seemed to make a difference. She was beginning to feel lightheaded and brought her hands up to claw at the hand, covering her mouth and nose. Just as stars began to form before her eyes, she used her mind and called to her mates. "Roan, Chet, Justin, help me," she screamed into their mind. Link as a prick stabbed into her neck, just before her body slumped and she passed out. "Sam, where are you?" Justin asked frantically. "Sam. Fuck. What the hell is going on? Where is she?" Roan said through their link. Justin and his brothers hurried out from behind the bar, heedless of the fact they had customers to serve. "She's not in the kitchen?" Chet asked as he passed. "She's not in the office either," Roan said. "Where the hell could she be? For fuck's sake, both of you calm down and use your wolf senses. She's outside." Justin urgently followed their mate's scent. "What the hell is she doing outside? We told her not to go anywhere without letting us know first. I am going to paddle her ass when we find her," Chet said vehemently. "We have to find her first." Justin desperately sniffed the air near the back door to the club. "I can smell human male mixed with her, and the scent is familiar. It's the same smell she had on her after she was stabbed. It has to be that motherfucker Long. I'm going to change and see if my wolf can get a fix on Sam." Justin quickly began to remove his clothes. "Keep a watch out, and if anyone comes near, make sure they don't see me." "Sam, can you hear me, darlin'?" Chet called to their mate through their mental link. Fucking hell. Nothing. What has that bastard done to her? Take it easy, Chet. You have to get a hold of yourself. We need to keep cool heads if we are going to find our mate and have her back in our arms, Roan said quietly. I have her scent and I can smell a chemical of some sort. Think he's drugged her. I'm going to see which way they went. Justin leapt away and disappeared out of the alley. He followed the trail to where a car had been parked. Sniffing the ground, he chuffed with frustration, knowing he wouldn't be able to track any further. He looked around, making sure no one saw him in his wolf form, and headed back to his brothers. Should we call for backup? Chet snarled. Did you find anything? No. He had a car waiting, Justin explained. Her scent's gone, and yes, call Greg, Jake, and Devin. We need someone to take over the bar. Not that I care. Our mate is more important than the club. I don't give a fuck about the bar. We could just kick everyone out and close up. Yes, I'll get everyone out. Shit. I'd better get back in there before someone starts a riot, Chet snapped, heading back inside. I'll call in Greg, Jake, and Devin. They can help us track our mate. It won't be long before they get here. Roan sighed with frustration. Wait. Get Greg to run a check on Long. We need to know what his license plate number is. Justin's bones began to pop, his muscles contorting as he changed back to his human form. See if he can get Gerard to find him through the police database. Since he's the sheriff and a were as well as a pack member, he won't hesitate to help out. Just get Jake and Devin here ASAP, Justin snarled, pulling his clothes back on as Roan handed them to him one piece at a time. Gerard, I need your help, Roan called to Gerard through the common pack mind. Link, I want you to run a Gerard Long through the system. He has our mate. You can find his registration details. I want you to put an APB out on him. Sure, I'll get back to you as soon as I have something, Gerard replied. Jake and Devin are here, Chet informed his brothers from inside the bar. We can head to the sheriff's office and be on hand as soon as Gerard has any information. Okay, let's meet at the truck. I want the vehicle close so we can head out as soon as Gerard gets a reading on the fucker. Justin headed out front. Chet was already in the driver's seat with the engine running when Justin and Roan converged on the vehicle. He took off before they had their doors closed. Moments later the truck screeched to a halt outside the sheriff's office. All three of them were out of the truck and inside seconds later. Have you got anything? Justin called out as soon as he stepped inside. Yeah, his cousin Gerard answered. He's driving a silver late model sedan. I've already put out an APB on him. If he's anywhere close, one of my deputies will spot him and call in. Fuck. I can't stand the thought of Sam being with that bastard. She has to be so scared. I'll rip his fucking head off his shoulders when I find him. Justin snarled. Hang on a minute, Gerard said and turned to the radio. Go ahead, Malcolm. What have you got? I just spotted the car you put an alert on. It's heading south on 550 toward Najeezy. There was a woman in the passenger seat. I'm following from a distance, awaiting further instructions, Malcolm stated. Just keep them in sight. Do not apprehend, repeat, do not apprehend. I'll let you know what's happening soon, Gerard said and signed off. Turning toward Justin and his brothers, he pinned them with a look. You know we can't let him get away with taking our mate, Gerard. If it was your mate, you'd want to get to her and keep her safe. We'll let you and your brothers be backup, but we are the ones going in to rescue her, Justin said vehemently. We don't even know for sure where this guy is taking your woman. He may decide to drive through the night, Gerard suggested. No, I don't think he will. He's been after Sam for 6 months already. Think he'll stop the first opportunity he can. He's probably got someplace all set up in preparation, Roan said. Why the hell didn't you tell me about this shit before? I could have had this long guy watched before now, Gerard snapped. First of all, Sam didn't want anyone to know what was going on. She had a conniption when she found out that we told Jonah, Mikhail, and Brock that she was on the run. Justin took a breath when his wolf made itself known in his garbled voice. Secondly, you know as well as everyone else in the pack that we have been working our way up to the rank of beta. We are going to handle this alone so that our alphas know we can handle more responsibility. Jonah already knows you and your brothers are betas, Gerard said. He was going to announce it on the next full moon. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. I understand your need to rescue your mate, but don't go in half-cocked and put her in even more jeopardy. We are trained to handle this sort of thing. I want you to promise to call out if you need any help. You can't risk the life of your mate with your stubborn ass. You think I don't know that? I'm not stupid, Gerard. I'll call you in Malcolm if we need help, but right now I need to go after my mate. Justin snapped and slammed out the door, heading toward the truck. His angry strides ate up the distance rapidly. He jumped into the truck and barely waited for Roan and Chet to get in before peeling away from the curb. You have to get your fear and anger under control, Justin. You can't think straight if your emotions are taking over, Roan stated calmly. We are going to find our mate and bring her back, but you have to get your wolf to back off. How the fuck am I supposed to do that when that fucker has our mate in his clutches? He's already stabbed her once. God knows what he'll do to her this time, what he's doing to her right now. We are just as scared and torn up as you are. You're letting your imagination run away with you, Justin. Gerard was going to call us as soon as Malcolm called in. You know as well as we do that Long is still on the move. You have to start thinking logically, Chet said. Come on, bro, take a few deep breaths and calm down. Justin knew his brothers were right. He concentrated on calming the turmoil roiling in his gut and pushing his wolf back down so he had better control of his emotions. When he was able to think more clearly, he prayed to God Sam was okay, opening her eyes and then squinting against the light as it penetrated her retinas. She tried to focus her gaze while licking her dry lips. She had a nasty taste in her mouth, and her tongue felt like it was glued to the roof of her mouth. Looking down, she realized she was lying on a bed, and being careful not to alert her captor she was awake, she looked about. She ascertained she was in some sort of open-plan vacation cabin. Gerard was sitting in an armchair across the room and looked like he was reading the paper. Her gaze skittered about the room, looking for a weapon she could use to aid her in her own escape. There wasn't much in the place, but her eyes landed on a lamp near the armchair as well as a candlestick on the small dining table. There was a small kitchen off to one side which could hold carving knives. If she were able to get up and about, she might be able to use one of those items. Shifting quietly and minimally so as not to alert Gerard, she was conscious. She nearly groaned with frustration when she realized her hands and ankles were bound. Looking down to her wrists, she saw there was duct tape wrapped around them. Shit, what are you going to do now, Sam? Come on, girl, don't just lie there scared out of your wits. Start using the brain God gave you and think of a way out of this. A noise across the room alerted her, and she looked up to see Gerard staring at her as he placed the paper on the coffee table. Hello, Sam. I'm so glad you decided to wake up and join me. We are going to have such fun together. I have waited for you for months and nothing, and no one is going to stop me now. Not even those 3 men you're living with, you little whore. You know, you really surprised me when you moved in with them. After only just meeting them, I thought you had more morals. Just goes to show no one is what they seem on the outside. You're a little slut just like all the others were. Peter obviously knew what he was about when he dumped your ugly ass. Sam whimpered as he rose and stalked toward her. She could see evil intent and insanity in the depths of those blue eyes, and he scared the crap out of her. Using her hands even though her wrists were bound, she pushed and scuttled back across the bed. It was a difficult undertaking, but the farther away from him she was the better. The false security didn't last long because before she knew it, her back was to the wall and he was standing before her, his thighs touching the mattress. Sam cursed the fact that she hadn't told her mates she loved them when they meant the world to her. She had been so stupid, and now she didn't know if she would ever get the chance to tell them. Closing her eyes as he reached out toward her, she flinched, waiting for the pain to begin. She had already had a taste of his violence and knew that had only been the tip of the iceberg. He reached over and grabbed her breasts in a painful grip. She bucked away from him, moisture in her eyes that he was touching her when that right belonged only to her mates, the men she loved, with her whole being. Fear permeated her soul when he pulled his hands away and reached for the knife strapped in a sheath on his belt. His eyes were so cold. Now that he had her all alone, a long thin blade in his hand, she knew she was done for. Chapter 13. I'm going to see if I can contact Sam through our link again, Roan said just as Justin's cell phone rang. Hold that thought, Roan, Justin replied and then answered his cell, putting it on loudspeaker. Gerard, what have you got? Malcolm followed them to the rental cabins about 10 miles this side of Najeezy. Looks like Long had it all planned out. He's going to scout the area. And we'll meet you out front. He'll be looking out for you, but he has my orders to go in and get your mate out if you don't get there in time. Malcolm will keep me informed and just make sure you do as he says so you don't go putting your sorry asses in danger. We're not stupid, Gerard. We have been involved in pack security before, and we know what we're doing. Yeah, I know, but from what I've heard from the other newly mated pack members, including our alphas, it's different when it's your mate. You're too involved to think clearly. Just watch your backs, Gerard said. We will. Thanks, cousin. Justin ended the call. According to the GPS, we're only 5 minutes from the rental cabins. When you get close, turn the lights off, Justin. No need to alert Long that we have him in our sights. There is no way I want that fucker escaping. He's going down. One way or another, Roan said in a deep, garbled, growling voice. Your wolf is showing, Roan. Get control, Justin said in a calm voice, glad he was finally back in charge of his emotions. You don't want to go off half-cocked and have your wolf take over. The last thing we need is for Malcolm to have to call the coroner and trying to explain a wolf attack. There's Malcolm's car, Chet pointed out as Justin killed the lights and coasted the truck to a stop. Roan was the first one out, his brothers quickly following. He took a step toward the cabins he could see 100 yards ahead just as Malcolm came out of the trees off to the side of the driveway. What can you tell us? Justin asked. He has her in the first cabin. Her ankles and wrists are restrained and she's unconscious, but your mate doesn't look like she's injured, Malcolm explained. There is only one entrance besides a couple of windows. He's reading the paper. Let's go. Roan took the lead, and when they were outside the cabin he looked at his brothers. They gave a nod just before Sam's scream reached his ears. He didn't hesitate. He kicked the door to the cabin open and scanned the interior. Sam was bound to the bed, every muscle straining away from the man looming over her. Gerard turned toward the sound of the door slamming into the wall. Roan took in the knife in the man's hand and leaped forward. He threw himself between the knife and his mate, and the metal of the blade slashed into the flesh of his arm. Roan barely felt it. With adrenaline running through his system and his wolf empowering him, he shoved Long back with a mighty push. Watching dispassionately, Long went careening into the far wall. He bounced off it, and then his momentum sent him tumbling forward. As he hit the floor, the knife clattered free of his grip. With a deranged snarl, Gerard lurched toward the knife. Justin dove toward it at the same moment. Gerard's hand closed around the knife. Roan was dimly aware of Chet speaking to Sam behind him, but he couldn't take his eyes from the action. Justin threw himself on top of Long, eliciting a grunt from the madman. He couldn't quite reach the knife clasped in Long's sweaty grip, though. Roan wanted to jump in, but was afraid of making matters worse. Justin rolled onto his back, taking Gerard with him, moving far faster and more efficiently than any human could. For a moment Long was on top of him, his arms waving as he tried to twist free of Justin's strong hold. Then Justin rolled them again so that he was on top. Roan looked for the knife. At the same instant that he realized it was underneath Long, the human let out a strangled gasp. Justin rolled to his feet, looking down. Gerard Long flopped on the floor, his hand scrabbling ineffectively at the blade of his own knife, embedded in his chest. His eyes widened in shock, his mouth opened, and he gasped. In the next instant he lay still, his face twisted in a grimace of pain. He stared at nothing with unseeing eyes. As far as Roan was concerned, poetic justice had been delivered. Turning toward Sam, he rushed to her side just as Chet removed the tape from her limbs. He scanned her body, looking for blood and injuries. His breath left in a great rush. His mate looked to be unscathed. Are you all right, honey? Did he hurt you? Justin asked as he ran his hands over her body, checking for injuries. N-no. Y- you were J- just in T- time, Sam sobbed. Justin pulled Sam onto his lap and embraced her. She sank her face against his chest, clutched his t-shirt in her fists and cried. Roan moved into one side of her and rubbed his hand up and down her back, trying to offer comfort, and Chet did the same from her other side. When the storm had finally passed, Roan scooped Sam up into his arms and inhaled her familiar scent. Her limbs were still shaking as the adrenaline coursing through her system looked for an out, but then he realized she wasn't the only one shaking. He sank down onto the side of the bed and buried his face in her hair against her neck. He breathed deeply. His wolf backed off when he didn't smell any blood on his mate, and he exhaled on a sigh of relief. Are you sure you're okay, sweetheart? Asked Roan. Yes, I'm fine. Can we go home now? Sam lifted her head, her tears finally abating, looking from him to Chet and Justin and finally to the floor of the cabin. Malcolm was standing over the corpse, shaking his head slightly. His radio squawked, and Roan knew the place would soon be overrun with police. Are we done here, Malcolm? Chet inquired. Yeah, we're done for now. I'll come by the house later to get your mate's statement. I have to hang around for the coroner. It's nice to finally meet you, Samantha. I only wish it was under different circumstances. Me too. Roan stood with Sam in his arms and headed out. He carried her to the truck and got into the back seat with her. After buckling her in, he sat right next to her, his arm wrapped around her shoulders. She leaned into his side with her head resting against his chest and snuggled up. Moments later her breathing evened out and she fell asleep. How's our mate doing? Justin asked as he glanced up in the rearview mirror. She's asleep. She's totally exhausted. I think I would be too if I'd been through what she has, Roan replied. As soon as we get home we'll put her to bed. Our alphas are going to want an account from us, but I don't want Sam left alone for a minute. She's going to need all our attention and love to get over this, Chet said. Shit, it nearly tore my heart out when she started crying. She's had to be so strong for a long time and with no one to lean on. I don't ever want her to be in such danger again. I'm just glad it's finally over and hopefully she can put this all behind her. I can't believe her ex-husband did that to her. The fucking bastard. Roan snarled. If I ever lay eyes on him, I am going to rip him apart piece by piece. How that fucker could ever tell Sam she was ugly is beyond me. The guy must be blind. Jolting awake to the sound of screaming, she bolted upright in bed only to slump when she realized she was safe. The bedside light was switched on. 3 sets of hands ran over her body with soothing motions, and 3 sets of eyes looked at her with concern. Are you okay, honey? Justin asked from beside her. Yes. I'm sorry I woke you all, she answered huskily. Her throat was slightly sore and she knew she must have screamed really loudly. A banging noise from a door slamming open echoed in the silence, and then there were 9 large men trying to see into the bedroom. Sam shrank down and pulled the quilt up over her chest, thankful that she actually had a t-shirt covering her breasts. Usually she slept nude, and even though she was confused at this moment she was actually grateful for the clothes. What's going on? We heard screaming, Jonah asked. Sam's cheeks heated with embarrassment at having screamed loud enough to wake the whole house. The place was massive. No wonder her throat was hurting her. Everything's fine. Sam just had a nightmare. Thanks for coming to check on her, Justin replied. I'm sorry. Sam lowered her eyes to the bed. Don't worry about it, honey, Jonah said. We're all glad that you're back home where you belong, safe and sound with your mates. Try and get some more rest. Come on, guys, let's leave them be. They all left again. Oh God. Sam covered her face with her hands. I can't believe they all heard me. Sure, honey. Don't get upset. You weren't that loud. We can hear the slightest sound, Sam. Our wolves pick up so much more than humans do. Justin pulled her into his arms. Do you want to talk about your bad dreams, sweetheart? Roan inquired. No. I have to get up. I need to shower. She pushed against Justin's hold on her. Darling, you're safe here. No one will hurt you, Chet told her, running a hand up and down her quilt-covered thigh. I know that. I'm sorry. I just need to wash his touch away. I feel so dirty. She sobbed. Take it easy, honey. We'll get you cleaned up. Justin pulled the covers off her, lifted her into his arms and carried her to the bathroom. While he stripped her down, Roan turned on the faucet to the large spa bath and Chet put some of her favorite bath salts into the water. Checking the temperature to make sure it was to her liking, Justin once again lifted her and stepped into the tub, sitting down in the blissfully warm water. and pulling her onto his lap. Just sit back and relax, darlinda. Chet picked up a sponge. We'll get you clean. Hurry. I can still smell him on me, Sam urged with a hitch in her voice. Look at me, honey, Justin demanded, and she looked up, meeting his gaze. Without any hesitation. I love you, Sam. You're safe. He can't ever hurt you. Again. He's dead, baby, Roan added. Sam felt a curious lack of relief. Realizing why, she said, Peter is still out there, though. She lifted her gaze to each of her men in turn. He seems to have forgotten about me for now, but what if? Sure, sweetheart. We've got it all taken care of, Chet said. Chet, Justin grumbled in warning. Sam looked between them again. What do you mean? Roan explained. We know the local pack near Sebring. Justin sent an email this morning to one of their betas. If Peter ever contacts you again or spreads nasty rumors about you, he won't know what hit him. We weren't going to tell you, Justin added. We don't want you to worry about it at all. I won't. Saying the words, Sam felt something lift from her shoulders. She was safe now. Resting her head against Justin's shoulder, she closed her eyes and relished the caresses to her body as Roan and Chet began to wash her. She felt so comforted and right being with her mates. She loved them so much and they loved her in return. Every time they looked at her she could see the love they felt for her shining from the depths of their eyes. Once her body was clean and she could no longer smell Gerard's stench on her, she relaxed for the first time since waking so abruptly. Roan and Chet moved in on her sides, and she looked at Roan when he gently pulled her face around to his. He placed an emotion-filled, gentle kiss against her lips and she sighed as she met his gaze. I love you, sweetheart, so much. You were meant to be here with us. I would give my life for you, Sam. Chet cupped her chin and turned her head toward him. His eyes looked to be glistening with moisture as he stared deeply into her gaze. I love you, darlin'. I couldn't continue breathing if you weren't here with us. Oh God, I don't know what I ever did to deserve any of you, but I am so glad that I ended up in Aztec. I love you all so damn much it hurts, Sam sobbed, and reached out her arms and wrapped them around Roan's and Chet's necks as she snuggled into Justin's big body too. You have no idea how long we've been waiting to hear you say that, honey. Justin kissed and licked along her shoulder. Are you feeling better now, Sam? Yes. Are you up for some loving, sweetheart? Asked Roan. God, yes. Please. I love you all so much. I need you to make love with me. Need your hands and mouths on me. We are gonna love you so good, darlin'. Let's get you out of the tub and dried off, Chet said and easily scooped her up into his arms and out of the tub. Sam stood still and let her men dry her, and when they were done Roan carried her back into the bedroom. Her pussy clenched and leaked cream as she admired the naked, muscular bodies of the men she loved more than any other person in the world. She couldn't wait for the loving to begin. Chapter 14. We are going to spend the rest of the night loving on you, darlin', Chet rasped in a deep cadence as he climbed onto the bed. Sam was in the center of the mattress, her breath panting rapidly in and out between her lips, her chest rising and falling with excited desire. Her gaze connected with each of her mates, and her heart lurched in her chest to see all the love they felt for her exposed to her eyes. She felt so full of happiness and joy, so complete where she had felt so empty and lonely for so long. She looked forward to loving her men for the rest of her days. Chet watched her like she was prey to his predator, and her pussy gushed out more of her cream in preparation for some loving from her men. Crawling up between her thighs, he gently pried them apart, caressing her legs, the palms of his hands going higher and higher until they were barely an inch away from her weeping pussy. He never took his eyes from her as he slowly lowered his head to the apex of her thighs. The first lick of his tongue on her clit made her demand more with the arch of her hips. She bucked up into his mouth, needing to feel more of his touch. She cried out in animalistic need when Chet's tongue slid down through her folds and pushed into her cunt. Looking over to Roan when he cupped her cheek, she sighed in bliss when he leaned in and kissed her. The meeting of their mouths started off gentle and slow and so full of emotion that tears pricked her eyeballs. She closed her eyes as he deepened the kiss, and her body began to go up in flames. When the mattress dipped on her other side, she knew Justin had finally joined them on the bed. She sobbed into Roan's mouth when Justin sucked on her nipple. You are so fucking gorgeous, honey. Justin rumbled against her flesh, the vibration shooting from her breast straight down to her pussy and causing her internal muscles to clench. I will never be able to get enough of you, Sam. Sam cried out, in awe of the fact that her mates already had her on the verge of an orgasm. Her womb felt heavy, and molten lava was running through her body, bucking up and whimpering when Chet removed his mouth from her pussy. She tried to stay in contact with his mouth. He gave a slight chuckle. Please, she begged. Please what, darlin'? He asked. I need you to love me. I want all of you filling me up. Sure, just relax, Sam. We'll take care of you. You are so sexy and full of fire. I can't wait to have my cock buried in your pretty little pussy. Chet panted. Now. We control what happens in the bedroom, honey. You don't get to tell us what to do. Remember? Justin asked. But I need you all so much. And we need you too, sweetness. Just lie back and relax. Roan rumbled in a voice so deep it was almost a growl. Sam's breaths were coming so hard and fast in her excitement that she felt totally out of control, but it was nice to know she wasn't the only one affected. Chet moved up onto his knees between her thighs, and then he was slowly pushing his big cock into her pussy, reaching out with her arms intent on grabbing his hips and pulling him in faster. She whimpered with frustration when Roan and Justin each took hold of her wrists and pulled them up above her head, pinning them to the mattress. Nice and slow, darlin', Chet crooned to her. I don't want to hurt you. Sam. You won't. Please, I just need you to fuck me hard. Justin and Roan each ran their hands all over her body. She wasn't sure if they were trying to inflame her libido or calm it down, but she didn't care. All she wanted was to have them filling all of her. She was so on edge, and Chet was taking his time penetrating her. She'd had just about more torture than she could stand. Wrapping her legs around his hips, she used her muscles, tightening her limbs around him and bucking up, moaning with pleasure as his hard cock slid into her pussy until his balls connected with her ass. Fuck, you feel so good, darlin'. You are a naughty girl, Sam. We'll have to punish you for that later. Chet groaned but held still inside her. He looked at Roan and Justin. The other two men moved away from her, and then in a lightning-fast move Chet rolled over, ending up on his back with her lying over him, her thighs spread wide outside of his. Don't you move, honey. I'm just going to prepare your ass so we can all love you together, Justin said in a deep rumbling voice. Sam mewed and tried to rock her hips when Justin began to caress her anus with looped fingers. She relaxed her muscles like they had taught her and pushed back against him. You're such a greedy little thing, aren't you, honey? Fuck your asses. Gripping my fingers so hard. Don't move, sweetheart, Roan growled and popped her ass cheek. The heat from his smack traveled to her ass and pussy, only firing her arousal to a higher level. It felt so carnally erotic to have Chet's cock in her pussy while Justin began to fuck his fingers in and out of her bottom. She moaned and clenched around his digits as he withdrew them from her back entrance. Are you ready, honey? Yes, she screamed her reply. Hurry, please. Justin covered her back, his chest hair tickling her skin, and then she groaned as his cock began to penetrate her rosette. Squeezing her eyes closed tightly, she savored the burning and pinching sensation as his cock worked its way into her back channel. He took his time, thrusting in short, sharp digs, letting her body adjust slowly to his invasion, swiveling her hips and trying to get him to go faster only earned Sam another smack to her butt. Stop moving, Sam, or it's going to be over before we even start, Justin rasped. Hold her still. Chet wrapped his arms around her waist to prevent her from moving too much, and Roan placed a hand between her shoulder blades while Justin gripped her hips firmly. Not so squirmy now, are you, honey? Justin said with a chuckle, and then he groaned when she used her pelvic floor muscles to clench on the cock's sheath in her body. Fuck, you feel so good, darlin', Chet moaned. Okay, I'm in. Sam sobbed as Justin and Chet moved her into a sitting position, her torso perpendicular to Chet's. Roan reached over, cupping her cheek in his large palm, and turned her toward him. Her gaze locked onto his cock, which was at eye level as he knelt on the bed next to her. The sexy bastard was stroking his hand up and down his hard shaft, and she could see drops of pre-cum glistening on the tip. Leaning slightly to the side, she licked her lips just before she opened her mouth and engulfed the head of his dick. Oh yeah, that's it, sweetness, suck my cock. Your mouth feels like heaven. Sweetheart, Roan gasped, whimpering with delight and pleasure around Roan's cock when Justin pulled his cock from her ass and surged back in. She tried to follow his movement by thrusting her hips, but between him and Chet there was no way she could move. She growled with frustration, but that only made her men laugh huskily. She groaned as pleasure zinged from her pussy to her ass and back again when Justin and Chet began to counter-thrust in and out of her holes. She laved her tongue on the underside of Roan's cock, then bobbed up and down his length. Juices leaked continuously from her excited pussy as she tried to suck Roan to the back of her throat. She gagged once, then breathed deeply through her nose and tried again. This time she succeeded in taking him farther down her throat and swallowed around the head of his cock. Fuck. You are incredible, sweetheart. Do that again, Roan demanded. So she did. Sam whimpered and gasped when Chet and Justin began to fuck her harder. The friction of the erection sliding in and out of her body had her teetering on the verge of climax. Her toes curled as tingling warmth traversed her pussy and limbs. The wave coiling up inside her was so big it almost scared her at its size, but Roan's groan and words helped to calm her and let their love wash over her. I'm coming, Sam. He roared out his release and she swallowed quickly, making sure she took every drop of his cum down her throat. She cleaned him up before he pulled from her mouth and collapsed on the bed beside her, still breathing heavily. Oh my God. It's too good, she panted. No, honey. It'll never be too good, Justin replied as he thrust back into her ass. Come, darling. Chet growled his demand, slipped a finger down between their bodies and tapped her clit. That one touch was all it took for the wave to break over her. She screamed with orgasmic bliss as wave after wave of rapture washed over her, making her body shake from the top of her head to the tips of her curled toes. That's it, honey. I can feel your ass milking the cum from my balls, Justin groaned. And then Justin slammed into her ass one more time and roared out. His cock swelled and jerked in her ass as he climaxed, his seed spewing into her channel. The warm bursts only seemed to enhance her own orgasm, sending another round of contractions running through her womb and pussy. Moments later, Chet held her hips firmly, thrust his cock into her rippling cunt and froze, shouting out as he reached his own release and filled her with his cum. You are so fucking sexy, sweetheart, Roan stated in a husky voice. He pushed the damp hair from her face where she rested her cheek on Chet's chest. I love you, Sam. Me too. She sighed out her reply and smiled, too satiated to open her eyes. You are gorgeous, honey. Love you. Justin's voice held so much emotion that it brought tears to her eyes. Ditto, she mumbled, finally opening her eyes when he kissed her nape. You are so special, darling. You mean the world to me, Chet exclaimed, gently lifting her head up and kissing her lips. I love you too. All of you. I'm sorry I didn't say those words earlier. Was scared. It took Gerard's kidnapping to open my eyes. Life is too uncertain and short to be afraid. I won't let fear stand in my way again. Sam groaned when Chet eased his cock from her pussy. When she went to move, Justin wrapped his arms around her waist and rolled them both onto their sides. Stay right where you are, honey. We'll take care of you. Roan must have slipped into the bathroom when she hadn't been looking. He climbed onto the bed and lifted her leg, cleaning her pussy and ass, and Chet patted her with a dry towel. There you go, sweetheart. Relax and close your eyes. You need a good night's rest. We have a surprise for you tomorrow. Even though Sam had heard Roan and was curious, her men had totally worn her out and she was already starting to fall asleep. She planned to question them first thing in the morning about their surprise. She absolutely loved surprises. Chapter 15. Sam woke with an air of expectancy because she remembered Roan had said something about a surprise right before she had fallen asleep. Stretching and smiling, she opened her eyes only to find herself alone in bed. Her smile turned to a frown, but she got up and went to shower and dress. By the time she headed downstairs to find her men, she wasn't feeling very happy anymore. She hated waking up alone, and she had told her mates countless times how much she enjoyed waking up with them beside her. Stomping into the kitchen, she helped Angie and Cindy take the plates of food to the table and glared at Justin, Roan, and Chet when they smiled at her. She backtracked a little when she remembered what they had said about challenging them in front of the pack. Taking a deep breath, she exhaled slowly and counted to 10, then lowered her eyes, turned, and headed back to the kitchen. For more food. Sitting down to breakfast, she only picked at her food and wouldn't look at her mates. She jumped when 2 large hands landed on her thighs and lightly brushed over her. "What's the matter, honey?" asked Justin. "Nothing," she replied with a grumble. "Did you get out of bed on the wrong side, darlin'?" Chet leaned toward her. From her other side. "No," she snapped. "Are you sure there's nothing wrong, sweetheart?" Roan was sitting beside Justin. Sam finally lifted her head and frowned at them, but instead of answering she shook her head slightly, then looked back down at her plate. It wasn't just that she had woken alone that was making her grumpy, and if she was honest with herself, she really had no idea why she was feeling so cranky. Hearing Justin sniff the air and then Chet, she felt even more confused when they leaned into her and smelled her neck. Roan got up from his chair and came to stand behind her. He too leaned in and breathed in against her skin. "You smell so good, Sam," Roan said in a deep, grumbling voice. She lifted her head and turned to frown at him, but as she did, she caught every male in the room surreptitiously smelling the air. Frowning again, Sam lifted her arm and sniffed her pit. No, she didn't smell. She just had it. Shower, for God's sake. What the hell is going on? All of a sudden the men began to howl and cheer and started congratulating her mates. She had no idea what was going on, but her men seemed pleased about something. Their chests were puffed up as if they had achieved something spectacularly masculine. Looking over to first Michelle, then Kira, and lastly Talia, she found each of them smiling back at her as if they knew a secret. She opened her mouth, but Justin leaned in and kissed her passionately right there in front of everyone. Her cheeks were warm, and when he finally lifted his mouth from her, she knew the pack members would see her embarrassment. "Justin." Roan bent down over her shoulder, covering her mouth with his, and swallowed the rest of her sentence. When he was done and had pulled away, she looked at her mates with bewilderment. Her gaze met Chet's and he slowly reached up, threading his fingers through her hair, holding her still as he lowered his lips to hers. By the time he was finished, she was breathing heavily and horny as hell. "Come on, honey, we need to show you something," Justin said, taking her hand and leading her from the room. "What's going on? Why weren't you in bed when I woke up?" she asked moodily. "We'll explain it all to you in a moment, sweetheart," Roan replied and scooped her up into his arms. Sam wrapped her arms around his neck and leaned into him. Inhaling his masculine scent, she couldn't resist taking a taste. Licking up and down the side of his neck, she heard a growl rumble against her side and loved that she could affect her men just as much as they affected her. Nibbling on his earlobe, she giggled when he groaned and pulled her in tighter against him. She had been so wrapped up in what she was doing, she hadn't taken any notice of where they were going, and when she did, she wasn't really surprised to find them back in the bedroom. Her breath caught in her throat when the scent of roses wafted to her nostrils, and the sight before her brought tears to her eyes. "Oh my, that is so beautiful," she gasped and sniffed when moisture formed in her eyes. "How and when did you do this?" Their bedroom had lit candles on every surface and rose petals were strewn across the bed and on the floor. An ice bucket with a bottle of champagne sat on one of the bedside tables, as well as 4 glasses. "Cindy and Angie snuck up here to set it up for us once the food had been served. We wanted to surprise you." Roan lowered her down his body until her feet connected with the bed, and he held her steady while helping her to sit on the edge. He looked at his brothers, and then as one they all knelt down at her feet. Roan was holding one of her hands and Justin reached out to take the other. Chet placed his palm on her thigh and rubbed gently. "Sam, you mean the world to us, and we would be honored if you would agree to marry us. Will you marry us, darlin'?" Chet asked. "I thought we were already married," Sam said, a little confused. "You told me that when you bit and marked me I was your wife." "You are, sweetheart, don't ever doubt that. We would like to be married to you on paper as well," Roan explained. "Honey, we love you so damn much. We want to make sure you are looked after if anything ever happens to us. We decided since I am the eldest you will marry me on paper, and if something does happen then you will have our name. We will be able to legally look after you. Please marry us, Samantha." "Yes. God, yes. I love you all so much. I would be honored to marry you all," she replied, reaching out, touching each of her mates on the face as tears of joy ran down her cheeks. Chet reached into his shirt pocket and withdrew a small jeweler's box. Opening. He held it out to Justin. Gasping with awe, she eyed the 2-carat diamond. Solitaire set in gold with 2 smaller diamonds on either side and watched. Justin plucked the ring from the box. He placed the ring on her left hand and Sam swore she felt a circle of warmth around her finger. It's so beautiful. I love you all so damn much. I can't wait to marry you. Have babies with you and grow old with you. She sobbed joyfully. We already have a head start on the baby, darlin', Chet said with an exuberant grin. What? You're pregnant, sweetheart, Roan said gently and winked at her. How do you? Honey, we're werewolves, remember? Justin interrupted, tapping his nose. We smelled the change in your scent this morning. You conceived our baby last night. Sam launched herself from the bed and into the waiting arms of her mates. Anyone had told her a couple of months ago she would be pregnant and made it to 3 hot, sexy werewolves, she would have told them they were delusional. She felt so complete and full of love, and nothing was going to get in between her and her men ever. Sam couldn't wait to hold her baby in her arms, and she looked forward to spending long love-filled years with the loves of her life.